This is TJ with TechmadeEZ. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. And what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about WinBoat. There's also WinApps. WinApps and WinBoat do the same thing. I just think that WinBoat is easier to set up than WinApps. What they allow you to do is they allow you to run Windows applications outside of VM. So one of the challenging things about moving to Linux, and it's not as challenging as it used to be, but it still is a challenge for a lot of people, including me. And that is, you may have a Windows app that you just can't live without when you go to Linux. And so you either do a boot into Windows. Now a lot of applications in Linux today are cross-platform. So it's not as hard to move to Linux as it used to be, but there's still applications you may have to find a substitute for, or unfortunately run in a VM if Wine doesn't work. Now there is a way to run Windows apps on Linux, but not all Windows apps are compatible with what they call Wine, and then Bottles makes it easier to set up Wine and set up and run a Windows app. But it's very limiting on what apps that you can actually run that way. So a lot of times people will run a VM, including me. One of the things that I didn't want to give up going to Linux was my video editor. I bought it years ago. I've been using it for 15 years. I was using it for making family videos, stuff like that. So even though it's a medium to high-end video editor, it's very easy for me to use. I didn't want to give it up. And so when I started doing YouTube, then I had to start making videos once a week. And I didn't want to use the other system. I didn't want to dual boot. I couldn't figure out video pass-through for the life of me. I tried and tried and tried. So I ran a video editor in a VM. Now I wouldn't recommend running a video editor in a VM, but there's only one VM I found out there that was efficient enough to display the graphics that allowed me to video edit in, and that is VMware. None of the others accelerate the graphics enough for video editing. But this particular case, if you're a professional video editor, you wouldn't want to do it this way because I have to knock down the display, so the display is a little grainy, but it's smooth enough for me to video edit in. And I'm going to show you an example of that. So this video actually is about what is realistic with WinBoats. Because when I see these videos on there talking about WinBoats, they make us look like, oh, blah, 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 you can run any Windows app, which you can, but can you run it enough where, especially, say, Photoshop or video editing. Now, in my case, I am able to video edit with it, and so I am using it now for my video editor. I love launching my video editor outside the VM and even the Windows File Manager, because I use that to access the files to put onto my video editor. So this video is going to show, I'm going to show the performance of my current system. I just upgraded my current system a few months ago. Before I was using a Xeon system. And one of the Xeon systems I was using was the HP Z440. And I was video editing on that as well. VMware worked very efficiently in that, so on and so forth. And so we're going to install WinBoat on that system and see how it performs compared to my new system. Because like anything, there's pros and cons to anything. And depending on what hardware you have, running your Windows applications may or may not work this way for you. It works this way for me. In fact, I am delighted how it works for me. Happy that I can run my video editor that way. So this is going to be more than just a step-by-step install of the application, which it is going to be step-by-step, but I'm going to be doing it in Debian. The reason why I'm doing it in Debian is I actually have installed this several times. I installed it in Linux Mint, and Linux Mint uses Ubuntu, and they have Ubuntu instructions, and they have Debian instructions. They're a little different, but the Debian instructions weren't working. But I found out how to make it work, so that's why I'm going to do Debian, because if you're on Ubuntu, you follow the commands that they're given, it works fine. I don't know about Fedora and Arch because they do have instructions for that. I don't use Fedora or Arch, so I didn't try that. But anyway, let's go ahead. Let's check the performance of this, see if it'll work for you. Let's get it installed. Get it installed on the other system, see what performance is there, and let's go from there. So let's get started. One thing that I forgot to mention is there is a YouTuber that reviewed this, and his review of this, let's just say, was lackluster. But I don't even know if he has Windows apps that he wants to use. And this is not, you cannot run games in here. But whether you can do Photoshop or video editing, that is the big question. Because the only app that I'm using this for is video editing. Now it works for me, but it may not work for you. Everything is dependent on maybe what distro you're using, what hardware, particularly what hardware you're using. If you're using old hardware, it may not work for you. It does take up resources. So I just want to let you know that everybody's needs are different, everybody's hardware is different, so on and so forth. But for me, this is a great solution. I love this solution until they ever port this out to Linux, which I don't know if they ever will. But just keep that in mind. So let's get started. Let's get to the desktop. Okay, so this is my Linux desktop, and what I want to show here is I just want to show the system I'm running here. So I do have an AMD 9950X. I have an NVIDIA 3080 card. The 3080 card is important because we're running this in a VM. I have that in there for testing games, so on and so forth. I'm not saying it doesn't help, but that's not the key to running a VM or a program like WinBoat, unless you can do the video pass-through. And eventually maybe WinBoat will allow you to do that. But I just want to show you the system here. And I'm running PikaOS, and PikaOS is based on Debian, not on Debian Ubuntu, but just Debian. So let's just go ahead, open up WinBoat here. So basically what it's doing, it's running a Windows in a VM behind the scenes here. And what you do is you click on apps, and the one thing that would be nice is if they were able to create a shortcut that I could put the app that I use, because I only use one app in Windows, and that's my video editor. I use the file manager as well in there, but it'd be nice if there was a shortcut. But all you have to do, I'm going to open up the file manager here, and I store all of my videos on my server, so that's why I have the H drive here. I can either get to where I record my videos for YouTube through here and click on the path, or I put a shortcut in videos here that takes me right to my YouTube videos. And I can now, here's PikaOS, that's the last video I did. Now I can double click on this right here, and it'll open up it'll open up Vegas Pro, or I can go down here and I can open it up through this interface here as well, and that will go ahead and launch Vegas Pro. And the first time, now whenever you launch, if you stop WinBoat and then you start it again, it's like starting Windows up again. And so the first time you launch an app, just like in Windows when you reboot, it may take just a hair longer to load, but once you close and go back, then it loads pretty quick. But anyway, this is my video editor here. I'm just going to play a little bit of this. I'm going to turn the sound down just so that it doesn't interfere too much with what we're doing here. And so let's just go ahead and play this, and you're going to see. Again, this is just me though, so on and so forth. But you're going to see it's really clear now. I can change how I run this. Now, when I was running this with VMware on my older system, I was running in draft mode and auto, and so it's a little pixelated or whatever you want to call it when you run it that way. But it was still made it so that I could edit that way. But now with this new system, I can actually run it in good and auto, which I think it would probably runs it full, but that's my performance here, so on and so forth. And I'm not saying everybody's going to have this same performance, because your system's going to be different. And I am using a CPU that's fairly powerful, so on and so forth. But again, the cool thing about this, now the reason why I have the file manager here, let me just launch this from the file manager. You'll see I launch it from the file manager. I keep all my videos for editing. So when I'm in Windows, I use the video editor to drag and drop my videos over to the, let me close that, to my video editor. So here's a video that I don't have on there. If I drag this over, here it is right here. Unfortunately, in Windows, it shows me dragging it in here, but because we're outside Windows, it doesn't show it. But if I drop it in here, there it is. And now I have access, and I can put this down on my video thing, so on and so forth. So it's for me, this works really, really well. I'm not saying that everyone's going to have the same performance that I have on their systems. Depends on what they're running. And it's not so much the 3080 that's giving me this performance. It's more or less the video, the CPU. Probably a little bit to do because, again, it's not using the driver for NVIDIA, so on, because it's a VM, unless you're doing pass-through. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to close this here. And so let's go ahead and let's get this installed. Before we install that, I want to go to my old system, because we're going to install this on my old system that I just replaced. But I want to show you also the video performance of there in my video editor using VMware, so on and so forth, so that you can see that there's the comparison on running WinBoat's VM on my old system compared to VMware. And again, your performance is going to depend on your system, just like my performance depends on these two systems that I'm using. I want to show you something here, because for a VM, VMs don't use your video card directly. They have a video driver that they use. So so you can't do NVENC rendering, stuff like that. But I just want to show you how good this VM is. And again, it's also my computer hardware. I realize that I have some nice hardware right now, and so but I'm just going to show you this. Hopefully it won't get dinged. No copyrights here. And it's just a bunch of action, all these cars crashing, but you'll see how smooth it is, so on and so forth. It's just really running really well for this kind of application. So let's go ahead and jump over to my other system. Alright, so here I am on my Linux desktop, and I'm interested to go to the system info. I just want to show you here, I was running this for years, and I've been doing YouTube for about 2.5 years, and so I was editing all my videos on here, and I was using the E5 2696B3, which is 18 cores, 36 threads, but this computer is 10 years old. And the reason why I upgraded is that I wanted to get into a newer system and test out newer hardware and see how it performed as well, and so forth. And because I can't use the video driver to render my videos, I'm doing it with just pure CPU horsepower in the VM. I wanted to see if it would be faster on a newer system too to render those, and it is faster on that new system. And the system that I showed you, it is 16 cores, 32 threads, but it's much more efficient, much faster than the Xeon system. Although I love the X99 platform, I thought it was a great platform that Intel had. But let's just go ahead and let's open up VMware. I just want to show you the performance of VMware, and I'm just going to play this so you can see how smooth it runs on this system with VMware. Now this video mode that I'm running in, I'm not running in draft mode, I'm running in preview mode in auto, which is probably full in preview mode. And you may not be able to tell, but it's a little pixelated, but not bad. And so it makes video editing for me pretty easy. Again, you wouldn't want to do this if you're a professional video editor and you're living on a video editor, where I only use it once a week. I just want to show you this because we're going to check out the performance once we install it on PikaOS. And the reason why we're installing PikaOS is because PikaOS is Debian base only, no Ubuntu, and I want to show you, if you're installing it on a Debian based system that's Debian only, that one of the situations you're going to run into. And I don't know if that situation with PikaOS is because PikaOS is using the latest drivers, and that's why I'm using PikaOS, latest video drivers, Linux drivers, to make it more efficient, or if it's a Debian situation. But at any rate, I'm going to show that. So let's jump over and install that on the PikaOS desktop. Alright, so here we are on my PikaOS desktop. This is the PikaOS default wallpaper. I'm not into it, and as you notice on my main system I changed that. But at any rate, let's just take a look at the system information. It's just the same as it was before. I'm still using that E5 2696. It's the same system, the HP Z440 workstation. And you might be wondering why PikaOS. I went to PikaOS because it's one of those gaming distros, and they have the latest kernels, drivers, and so on and so forth to get you the most efficient Linux experience possible on the desktop. And with gaming, it's like CachyOS, Bazite, Navora, so on and so forth. I just prefer to be in the Debian. I'm more familiar with Debian than I am Fedora and Arch. I did do a video on CachyOS though. If you want to watch that, there'll be a link below. I did a video on gaming with Bazite as well, or not Bazite, but with PikaOS, which my son is now using. Went from Bazite to PikaOS, so on and so forth. So let's just go ahead. Let's get started here. Now let's go ahead and go to the website. This is the download portion of the website, and I'll have all these links in the description below. Now when you get here, it's going to have 4 options here. It's going to have the app image, it's going to have a Debian, Fedora, and Arch. And in Linux, if you don't know, there's 3 main operating systems, Debian, Fedora, and Arch, that everything's based on. The app image, the advantage of the app image, you don't have to install it on any of these. It just runs on its own. It's like a Windows exe file. You just download it and run it without installing. Now, I might suggest installing. I use the app image, but one thing I noticed, and I should go back to the main screen here. You're going to notice on the main screen here, it says it's a beta. Now, since the beta, that means they're going to be making improvements. Doesn't mean you can't use it because it's the beta. You can see that I'm using it, and I'm having tremendous success using it. And so, but I already downloaded these, so let's just go ahead to my download folder, and we can launch WinBoat from here. If you do WinBoat, though, you are going to have the app image. Anytime you do an app image, you got to go into properties, and you have to tell it to allow execute this program, and then you can just execute it. And I need to just take that away so it won't show that, and so on and so forth. And then what it'll do here
is it'll go ahead and it'll let us know there's an agreement here, and then it'll let us know right here that these are the things we need to install to get WinBoat working. And it's not as bad as you think. Even though we got to go to the command line, everything is cut and paste, and boom, it's done, it's ready to go. So, but one thing I do want to talk about though is I'm going to use the installed version. When you install anything from Linux, most of the time you can install it from the GUI. It'll go ahead and load it into the GUI, and you will install the application just like you do in Windows. Now it says remove because I already installed it, but if I hadn't installed it, I could just hit install and it would install it. So Windows, the only reason why I'm showing this is because there may be people on here that aren't familiar with Linux, think it's hard to use. It's not hard to use. It's very user friendly compared to it was 5-10 years ago even. So on and so forth. But let's get installing this. Now one thing you might want to do before you install this, you might want to download Windows 11, and you just go down here and you're going to download the ISO. So you need to go to this section here, and you're just going to click Windows 11, hit confirm, and then it's just going to want you to choose your language, and we're just doing English, confirm. And once you do that, then you just hit download and it's downloaded. So that's all there is to that. So let's get going. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this now, and we're just going to go through that same screen, and I agree. And now we're going to go ahead. Now this is the whole thing, is that these instructions are available when you click on this, but I'm also going to have the instructions for Debian and for Ubuntu in the description below. Okay, once you get to this point, the instructions, you just click on them, and I'm just going to open the browser, and it goes to this page right here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just pick your operating system that you're using, and you notice here's Ubuntu. We'll click on Ubuntu for a minute here, and then we're going to go down, and everything's copy and paste. Here's the first thing you're going to copy, and then we're going to go down and we're going to copy these in here, and we're going to copy these, so on and so forth. Now I'm not going to do the Ubuntu one because we want to do the Debian one, but it's really the same way. In fact, all the others are the same way. It's just going to depend on your operating system. But again, I ran into an issue here, so I just want to make sure that if you are using this, so if you are using Debian and you run into the same situation, you want to make sure you can install it. So we're just going to go down here. We're going to do the first step here, and all this does is it just removes any maybe inconsistencies that the system may have to run Docker. So we're going to run this right here. So it's going to give us a clean install of Docker, so on and so forth. So we're going to let this run. It only takes a sec for that to run, and then what we're going to do is, while that's running, we're going to go down. So now this is the thing about Linux, is that even though all of these are individual separate commands, you can just go ahead and paste them in, and it will just run a command, then it'll run the next command, the next command, the next command. So basically we want to do an update, we want to install this certificate. We're going to change some permissions here on key rings. We're going to do install curl, and then we're going to make a modification there. So we're just going to go ahead and copy this. You don't want to copy this whole thing and run the whole thing. You could if you wanted to, but let's just go ahead and put this in here, and we're going to let that do its thing. And so now we have that. Then we're going to go ahead, and you want to make sure that you copy this whole thing. You'll need to copy the whole thing here, and we're going to copy this, paste it in. Now in Linux, it's Shift Control V to paste into the terminal, not just Control V. And all right, so we've done that there. Now we're going to go down. What we're doing here is we have to install Docker, and so now if we go ahead and copy this, so right here technically we're supposed to be able to copy this, and Docker and Docker Compose will install. But you're going to notice here that no installation candidate, has no installation candidate, has no, anyway, it's not working. So what I ended up doing is I ended up just copying the first command here to copy Docker. And when I put this command in all by itself, it lets me know that I need to install these two apps right here to install Docker. So that's what we're going to do right here, is we're going to install Moby-Engine, Moby-CLL. That installs our Docker and our Docker Compose. Don't ask me why. I'm not a Linux expert, so on and so forth, but if you install those, it works. So let's go ahead and install those. Again, this is going to be in the description. It's just going to be copy and paste, and that's it. And we're done. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste in that command. We'll hit yes to install it. And look, I may have mentioned before, I'm not a command line person. I love it when it's just copy and paste and you're off and going, instead of me trying to type all the information in. So now that we've ran this command, I'm just going to hit it again because we've already ran it, and it'll show that it's already exists. So what we have to do at this point, though, we don't have Docker Compose installed. We have Docker installed now, but we need to install Docker Compose. So we need to type in this line here, and again, this will be all listed. This will all be in the description below. And then what we can do is then we can go ahead and install Docker Compose. So let's install Docker Compose. And at this point, we can put in Docker Compose version, and it'll show us that we have Docker Compose installed. So now we can move forward. So now what we're going to do is let's go back, and they want us. We're going to go ahead and check Docker to make sure it's working. And so we're just going to paste in this command here. And if you see it green here, Docker is working. And to get out of any time you're in a loop or something hasn't. An application has an exit out in the terminal, you just hit Control-C, and that'll give us back our prompt. And we're just going to go ahead and we'll put in this command. And so now we're ready to go to the next step. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and copy and paste Hello World in to make sure it's working. And it says here that it had a download, and Hello World is now working. If you get an error in here, like if Hello World doesn't come up, then that means it's not working, or obviously if this isn't in green and active, it's not working. So now we're just going to go to our next section here, and so what they want us to do here now is they want to, we just installed Docker Compose, and now what we want to do is we want to change some permissions with Docker. So now it takes us to this section over here, and all we're going to do is just copy and paste these. That is it. So this is what's nice about the command line with some of these applications, is a lot of it's just cut and paste. Kind of a pain to do. Could they automate this a little bit for the user? Yes, they probably could, but this is the way they're doing it. So we're just going to go ahead and put in those commands, and then we're going to copy and paste this one here. And so what this will allow us to do, this will allow us to run Docker without the super user or sudo. Our user will take over Docker. So now we can type in hello world without the sudo command, and it'll work. So now that we're done there, there's only one more step we have to do. And this one here, they just want to they just want you to make sure that it's running. So you don't have to do this part right here. We already did this, but since we're here, that's the next, what they want you to do. Boom, it's ready to go, so on and so forth. But now the thing that we need to do is we need to install free RDP. Now you can go here and you can do it from the command line, but most distributions you can install that through the GUI. No reason to go through the command line to do that. You just open up your software manager. We're going to type in free RDP. Here it is right here. Boom. And now what we're going to do is after that installs, we're going to go ahead and reboot the computer. They say that you can log out, log back in, and it'll reset Docker, but realistically, I've tried that. It doesn't always work. So the best thing to do at this point, after you install Docker and all these other and all the other commands that we did, it's just best to restart the system. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then we'll go ahead and launch this, and we'll install Windows. Okay, I've rebooted, so let's go ahead and open up WinBoat. We're just going to go back through these two screens, and we should see on here everything's checked off green, so now we can install Windows. And it's really easy. You're going to select your folder. This is the folder where you want everything to be installed. I accidentally selected the downloads folder, but I would put it in your home folder. And I'm in the downloads folder. I'm going to hit OK, hit next, and now we're going to go ahead and grab our ISO. You can actually let it grab the ISO as well, but since I downloaded the ISO, I'm just going to go ahead and choose it. Now this is what's great about this point. At this point is, we're going to put in our username and password here. I'm just putting in something simple. And so what we want to do now is we want to do how many cores. I have 18 cores. I'm just going to give it 18. You don't have to do that. And again, it's 18 cores, 36 threads. Let's knock this down to 16. My new system has 16 cores, 32 threads. So let's just do the same. And then I give it about 14, 15 gigs of RAM. And the size of your drive is just going to depend on what apps you want. I only install one app, that's it, so I don't need a huge drive for what I do. So I'm just going to hit next. And you definitely want to enable this home folder. When you do this, then you'll have access to your Linux home folder. Makes it really easy for you to share files between the VM. That is a nice feature, by the way. And then this just gives you an overview of what you just did. So I'm just going to hit install. So now you just sit back and you just let it install. You can watch the install. You don't have to type anything. It automatically installs it with a local account. You can go ahead and put in your Microsoft account if you have Microsoft apps that you need to do that, but it starts you off with a local account. I'm just going to open up the browser to show here that it is working in the browser, and so you can watch it there. And so we're just going to let this install. We'll come back, and then I'm going to go ahead and install Sony Vegas Pro, and so on and so forth, and then we'll run it and see what it's like. All right, once it's installed, it'll just come up with your menu, and we can hit finish here. Okay, so now that we have the browser closed, I just want to go into configuration, or let's go to apps. And I accidentally closed on apps. I wanted to show you that it does take a few seconds for this App Center to display all the apps that are available to launch through Windows. So when you first click on apps, give it a sec, and these apps will show up. Okay, so let's go to the Windows desktop for a minute here, because I want to show you we do still have to install Vegas Pro. I'm not going to record that, but I want to show you the desktop here. And one thing you're going to notice to see how small the toolbar is and the icons over here, it's because I'm using a 4K monitor, and you cannot adjust the resolution in this VM through Windows. But they do have a solution for that. So I'm going to close this free RDP, and we're going to go ahead, go to Home here. We're going to stop this VM, and we're going to go to Configuration. And we're going to go down here, and this allows me to change this 3 display options: 140 and 100, 140, and 180. But you don't see 180 until you click on 140. Then click on it, and now you can see the 180 there. And so I'm clicking on 180. I found 180 feet is kind of the perfect size for that. And then I'm going to do Smart Card Pass-Through. Now, this is the one thing about this VM that I'm not sure of, is if you say you wanted to get a file off of a USB. I couldn't connect to USB, but you can copy that file to your Linux folders, and you'll have access to it that way. But if you need to do anything to a USB, I don't know how that works yet. And again, this is a beta version, and eventually maybe you will be able to do that. Because I can definitely access anything in VMware that I need to. If I plug in a USB, then I have access to that USB through that VM. At this point, it doesn't matter. I don't need that kind of access here. I just want to run my Vegas Pro. So we're going to go back to the home here. We're going to start this VM. Again, depending on your system, it'll depend on how long it takes for the Windows VM to actually boot up. Okay, so now that this is booted up, I'm going to go back to apps here, and I'm going to launch my Windows desktop. And now you're going to see how the icons are bigger, the toolbar is bigger, so on and so forth. So now I'm just going to install Vegas Pro. Alright, so I've installed Vegas Pro. Now what you have to do after you install an app, it's not going to show up in here automatically. You have to hit refresh, and even when you hit refresh, just hit home and then hit apps, and it'll show up. So here's Vegas Pro down here. I'm going to go ahead and launch this. I've already launched the file manager here. Not that we need to launch it in this demo, but so this will take a minute to load, because it's going to load up. I wanted to make sure everything is working right, so I went into the VM and I loaded up the video that I was editing PikaOS on, and so it'll just take a minute. Now I will say this much: I am not running the latest and greatest Vegas Pro. I don't need the latest. I'm doing 18, which is 2018. Now it's 25. So now it may or may not run more efficiently if I was using the newest version. I don't know. But at any rate, here we have it right here. And you know, it might take a minute to refresh all of this stuff in here. Once all this stuff refreshes, then I'll go ahead and play it. Okay, so now that everything's refreshed, I'm going to go ahead and play this. And one thing you're going to notice here is
Steve with TechmadeEZ. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. What are we doing today?
I'm going to turn the volume down a minute, and you'll notice that when it first started, it was a little hiccupy. The first time you start that, it will react a little bit that way. But what you're going to notice here too is I have it in this preview mode, so I can run it in this and edit in this. It's not as smooth as it was in VMware on this particular system. Now my new system, not a problem, because my new system, you know, I can run it in good and in full mode on my new system. I can even run it in best if I want to. But on this system here, because it's older, it's not going to perform as, the VM's not going to perform as well as it did over there. And again, I'm showing you video editing, which is one of the hardest things that you can do in a Windows VM. Now in this particular case, this might be good enough to run, say, Photoshop, because again, Photoshop, if you're not dealing with video, definitely Photoshop in my new system. And so you can see that performance is going to be based upon what system you have. Let's go ahead and go back to my new system, and we'll conclude this with a few extra pointers. All right, so I'm going to launch Vegas Pro on my new system, and you're going to see the big difference on how much quicker it loads on this. So again, your performance using a VM or using these Win apps is going to depend on your system. You can see how everything is refreshing so much faster on this newer system. Again, the other system is more than 10 years old. The Xeons, their single core function is slower than the new version, the new CPUs today. Their multi-cores slower, so on and so forth. So if you have a newer system, then you could very well do exactly what I'm doing here. In fact, I'm going to play this real quick just so you can see it start up and see how smooth it is on this system here. I'll go ahead and activate the sound as well.
Getting it ready to be the driver out of Linux, because moving to Linux.
And I'm going to go ahead and rewind it just so you can see that there's no audio hiccup or anything like that. And so I'm going to turn that back down. So you can see that it's very efficient for me to do my video editing here. Now, I didn't do this to say video edit with WinBoat, but what I'm showing you is your performance on running Windows apps is just going to depend on the system that you're using. You may have a system that's only 4 cores that you're swapping to Linux for, and so that may not work. Now, a newer system like an AMD, say 7600X, might perform as well as also. I don't know because I haven't tested. Now I am putting together another test system because my test system is old and I want to do a test system on newer CPUs. So I am building an AMD test system that is going to have the x86X CPU in it, just because I want to be able to test things not on my system because I'm using the second best AMD CPU, desktop CPU there is, and I'm not using the 3D because I'm not a gamer. I wanted more performance for production work, and that's why I got the 9950X instead of the X3D, so on and so forth. So my point is that I'm excited about this program. I know this is beta. Hopefully in the future they're going to improve the graphic performance as well. Again, on my system it's not as crucial because my system is newer, and so it is just awesome though that I can now edit in here without going into my VM. I actually feel like I'm using Vegas Pro on my Linux desktop as a Linux app. Now again, it is taking up resources to run a VM, and that's the other problem. You may not have the resources. I knew I was going to be running a lot of stuff on this system, so I have 64 gigs of RAM, 16 cores, 32 threads, so I can pretty much throw at this what I want, so on and so forth. But it's just exciting. I hope this was helpful. Try it on your system, see if it works. If it doesn't work and you run a Windows app more efficiently, then look at my VMware, how to install VMware. Anyway, this is TG with TechmadeEZ. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Now that was easy peasy.